The Legendarium podcast is brought to you
by you. So please visit patreon.com/legendarium
to support the show. But for now,
welcome to the Legendarium. The moment he told Rey, "You are my granddaughter," or whatever he said.
Yeah, what is he, Russian?
I don't know. But my point is, the moment he says that, I thought, wait, who did Palpatine nail? I want to know. That's one of those questions.
You don't think Palpatine had a friggin' harem?
I'm sure he did. I just want to know who.
Welcome, everybody, to the Legendarium podcast, a special Christmas week edition, so to speak. Is this a special edition? I think so. All right, today we are talking about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. This is episode 9, the finale in the Skywalker saga. I am Craig Hanks, your host. We've got Todd. Say hi, Todd.
Hi, Todd.
Megan.
Hi, Megan.
And Ryan.
Hello.
And Ken.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
You're not saying what?
Hi.
Hi? Okay.
Ken.
All right, so we're going to talk...
No insults? No insults?
No insults because, look...
I was looking forward to being insulted by you. It's been a long time.
I know you were, but you know what? We're going to have plenty of those to go around when the discussion of Star Wars starts, because we're all going to be very hyper-emotional, I think.
That's probably accurate.
By the way, in
plenty
case
of
you're
room.
Curious, first time the 5 of us have been on an episode together since the Words of Radiance episode.
There you go. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
About 150 episodes or so.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get right into our Rise of Skywalker discussion. Now, look, you guys know me. Our listeners know me. We know how this is going to go. I like to start off with some negatives, and there are plenty to go.
Screw you. I loved it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. Okay, so maybe we actually talk about the movie. Ryan has anger issues. Now, honestly, before we started up the mics, you guys should have heard when I brought up that according to projections, things weren't going so well for Rise of Skywalker. Ryan's face just goes all dark, and he's like furiously Googling numbers. No, I saw this one article where it says it was doing awesome. So shut up. Ryan will not hear a word against his Star Wars.
I'm fine hearing a word against it. I just think that narratives are also used to sell papers and get clicks.
Right. Or movies.
This is making $176 million. If you've made $176 million in one weekend, raise your hand. I mean,
well,
also,
right.
if you did do that, are you single? Yeah.
How many of us spent $4 billion to purchase a franchise? Anyway, so I guess when it comes to box office projections, it's not just about how is this movie doing. It's about we really are diving right into this, aren't we? Yeah. When it comes to box office numbers, it's not just this thing in isolation. It's look at the trend over time, and as we were saying, since The Force Awakens, things have not been going so well.
Disney has made their money back.
Maybe, but they haven't.
They have made their money back. $4 billion. For the franchise as a whole.
Is that what it was? I'm trying to remember. 4 or 6 billion, whatever it was.
4.2 or something like that.
Yeah. If you want to isolate it to only the movies getting back, then yeah, they haven't. But they have 2 giant theme parks. They have streaming service things coming in. Like, they have made their money back on the purchase. So if you want to talk about like trending on the movies, that's fine. But return on investment for the purchase, they're fine.
Maybe.
Fine.
But what they were counting on was not quite what they got.
Says who?
Says me. You think they... Okay, you think... All right, let me get this straight. You're saying that they purchased Star Wars and figured, oh, you know what? Yeah, we'll kill it after 5 movies. We're just going to kill it dead. We're going to screw this franchise over until nobody wants to watch it anymore.
No, not at all. I'm saying that you don't know what they were expecting when they bought it exactly. They had goals, they had metrics.
You're right. I wasn't in the boardroom. Right. That's true.
So we don't know if that's the case. They may have looked at this and gone, it didn't go quite as well as we had hoped. It came underneath. But as a whole and where we're going with this, we're fine.
You know what, guys? I've missed this.
Have you?
I've really, really missed
this. These are my least favorite episodes to do.
That's funny because I was about to say I have a bad feeling about this.
Now, this is I generally enjoy getting along with Ryan, and so I hate doing these episodes. But maybe we should actually talk about the movie itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Megan, why don't you start us off? How many times have you seen it, and how are you feeling about it at this point?
I've only seen it the one time. I would like to see it again tomorrow.
Okay.
I do not have to go to work. Hooray. I really, really liked it. I wasn't sure going in how they're going to wrap it up because they, The Last Jedi was not my favorite. And it was kind of a mess, and I felt like they did a really good job. For me, it's probably my favorite Star Wars movie besides the trilogy. So there you go.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. All right. Ken, what do you think?
I am anxious to go see it again, which that alone makes it better than The Last Jedi. Which I am also grateful that this movie makes it so that I can forget that movie ever existed, because it morphs right.
Because it might as well not have.
It might as well not have. It seamlessly transitions from 7 to 9. It's great. I love it.
Ryan, how are you feeling about it? Because this is a direct sequel to The Force Awakens. There are a couple throwaway lines. I killed Snoke. And, you kind of, maybe there's a couple things you want to know.
I killed Snoke. I made Snoke.
Kylo Ren says, I killed Snoke.
Oh, yes.
That sort of thing where it might behoove you to know a couple of things from The Last Jedi, but if you never saw it, you're going to be just fine. Right. How do you feel about that?
You know what? I agree with that. My general feeling with this movie, if you want to know my complaints there, is that it feels like it's a movie and a half in a one movie time slot.
Oh, yeah.
Because J.J. Abrams had to tell extra story.
He had to retell Rian Johnson's story.
Not all of Rian Johnson's story, and he wouldn't. And the thing is, he openly even said just this last thing was over the weekend here that there are things that Rian Johnson did that opened up doors for them in this that would not have been there otherwise.
Well, there's a diplomatic way of putting it.
So, if you don't like The Last Jedi and want to skip over it, you're fine. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't care. I think The Last Jedi, I've said this before, as a whole, I think it's a very beautiful movie. It's a great movie. It's even a great Star Wars movie. I just think it's in the wrong storyline. It should be tell this story outside of the Skywalker saga, and we're all raving about it because it's not in the middle of a timeline. You want to talk about, I loved how it subverted all of these ideals.
Oh gosh, if you say subvert expectations, I'm going to kill myself.
If you understand, that's fine if you were excited by that. I would not recommend doing that 8 installments into a 9 installment story.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's finish off 9.
Did you
start new, and then we can go ahead and talk about these other things. So.
There were a couple of things that felt this way, but there was one giant middle finger to Rian Johnson in this movie. There was the helmet. That was one that we kind of knew about from the trailer, but the other one was a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
Yeah,
giant middle finger.
Yeah.
How dare you, Rian Johnson, do this? I loved that moment.
I watched that moment, had a similar thought, and thought I wasn't sure if there's a part of me that sits here and goes, I don't know if JJ is openly giving him a middle finger or if it was just people have been like this. Congratulations, the screenplay for this was written by Reddit. People wanting to see things corrected and done that way. I'm not sure how much JJ actively was looking to be like, Ryan, you screwed the pooch on this one. Because they're both artists, and I think he can respect what Ryan did. Just it threw the arc they were going for a loop that it wasn't ready for.
Yes.
So let me back up then. I want to talk about my experience just I'm going to get into you, Todd.
Okay.
Easy.
I'm just sitting here in the corner. I'm
going to kick it to you for response. So I went and saw it on opening night. Ryan and Kyle and I went and saw it together. It was very late. We came out of the theater, and I said to Ryan and Kyle, I felt pretty good about it. Yeah, there's lots of nits to pick, and lots of little things that I was not terribly satisfied with, but overall, fine.
I believe the phrase you used was, I had fun, I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's that still feels accurate for that opening night. And then over the next 48 hours, it did not age well. I was really dissatisfied with a lot of the stuff in it, and a lot of the choices that were made. I was not happy at all. Then last night, Saturday night, went and saw it again with my son, my dad, my niece and nephew. So we all go and I see it again. I'm not looking forward to this. I gotta sit through this again. Came out of the second viewing and had the exact same reaction that I did the first time, which I thought was a really good sign. Because yes, all the nits are still there for me to pick, but ultimately, even though my kind of analytical mind was like, what kind of choices were those? And we can get into some of that stuff. It ultimately was a fun and more or less satisfying movie. So, Todd, what did you think of it?
So I saw it 3 times in less than 24 hours.
That's for your sins, or
my one showing was a spontaneous. Can we get in to see it on Thursday night for my daughter's 15th birthday?
Answer yes, because
and we did, and we
nobody
did.
was
We
going
got
to see it.
We got great seats. It was a good opportunity to see it. We saw it in 3D. The next one I saw at 9 a.m. On an IMAX screen, but not in 3D. And then the last time that I saw it was at like 3 in the afternoon. And somebody asked me, it said, was it that good? And I said, no, it really wasn't. Had they been, it was not a situation where I got out of the movie theater and said, I need to buy another ticket right away and get right back in for me. However, I walked out feeling very satisfied that the arc was played out well, that the way that the story was handled. Me personally, there were some callbacks to things that were done really well in the very first Star Wars movie. There were some callbacks that I think were homages or could be seen as homages to some real high points through the rest of the films, both in the prequels and in the original trilogy. And the way that it resolved all of these pieces felt to me like a really good finish, a nice cleansing breath. And I very satisfied. I also have a couple of major pieces that I say to myself, okay, storytelling wise, this one, there were a couple of problems. But for me, there were a couple of problems for me. But other than that, I can look at it and go, yeah, I can get behind it though. And I've enjoyed it. And I'll probably go see it another 2 times during the upcoming week. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of feel like, all right, I've seen it twice. I'm good. Forever.
Yeah, no, I'll probably go see it twice.
Will you own it?
I don't know. I don't own the Last Jedi. I do own The Force Awakens. I've never opened it. And now I don't need to. Now that we have Disney Plus, I'll never need to open The Force Awakens. But yeah, I mean, I bought it. I still feel like The Force Awakens is easily the best of these 3 by a long way. But maybe that's just me. Mm-hmm. Ryan's looking at me like
I don't know
insane.
that I agree with that. I think one of my favorite things about the Rise of Skywalker was that so much of it had the new big 3 together, Poe,
Doing
Finn, and
what?
Rey.
Rey had
I don't
some
even
stuff
care.
to do.
They just had such great chemistry and they had so much fun together. I liked seeing them all together, and that moment at the end where they've defeated the bad guys and they all get together and they just hug. I was just like,
yeah, that's
all
a
right.
nice moment.
I appreciate it. Like I liked having them all together because for the other 2 movies they were separate for the whole thing, and I like that their story finally merged together and that they got to work together.
Ryan, what do you want to say? Go on.
Use your words, man.
It doesn't have to go with what I just said.
He's got a look on his face like he wants to just run away and leave us to our own devices.
No, it's because you made the comment and doing what? Like the same thing that Luke and Han were doing when they were saving the Leia from the Death Star. Like they have a combined mission all together. Rey's purpose is to find Exegol and to get there and stop Palpatine, and their job is to help her finish that and make that happen.
Right, and at the end of the original trilogy, so Luke is off to confront Darth Vader, confront the Emperor, defeat the bad guys, whatever, and the other 2 are supporting his mission, doing their own things, etc., etc. And by the end of the Return of the Jedi, I cared about Han and Leia. I do not care about Poe and Finn. I don't care. Not to say that they don't do things, they have actions that they perform on screen, but I don't care. I don't know anything about them because the characters change so much over 3 movies. They don't have any character development in this one, and I felt like that was a real problem.
I can understand that. So which would lead me to say that it's not an issue that they didn't do anything. It's that there's no connection there for you.
Yeah.
That's not a fault to the story. It's a fault to the connection not being created.
That's not the fault of the story. That's
not.
my fault. It's
Partially.
my fault that I'm not.
That you're not connected to the character. Partially.
Okay.
At least partially. We have to take some responsibility for our viewership. Like,
Okay. I'm fine with that. But okay, whatever.
I think one of the things for me that
If this wasn't Star Wars, you wouldn't be saying that. If this was not Star Wars, you would not say that.
Wow, that's an indictment. While Ryan's chewing on that, I'll say this. As far as the interaction of the three characters, there is a certain amount of investment that we as viewers needed to make in them early. In the second movie, that is pretty much universally panned by us and by just about everybody else for all kinds of little things that were going on. Yeah, there were missed opportunities, but I don't think when I was coming back to this new film, I didn't turn around and say, and I hope they fix every missed opportunity. I just wanted them to capitalize on a couple of opportunities along the way, and I felt like they did. We got a glimpse a little bit more into Poe. Yeah, it sure would have been nice if we'd have gotten all of these glimpses last movie, but we didn't. But we still got them.
Is Poe force sensitive?
yes.
We do get.
Is Finn force sensitive?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And
Great.
we get some.
Let's dig into that. No, never mind. We can't because the movie's over. Sorry, Todd, go on.
We get some opportunities to see some things that we can turn around and say, oh, this is giving me a way to connect all of these characters if I choose to. If I choose to let this be enough to carry the story forward. I felt like it was. We get enough background on Poe to find out, oh, he really is a little bit more the scoundrel character. We get some nice glimpses into the and one of my favorite points in the show was when they meet Zori, and they look at him and and we have the little thing. You were a spice runner. You were a stormtrooper. Were you a spice runner? Were you a scavenger? We can do this all night.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of it. It felt very much like the witty banter that was going on in Empire Strikes Back, where the characters felt like they were having fun with each other. There's a little bit of levity in spite of all of the seriousness that has to be dealt with. And it kept me smiling and enjoying the experience. It was not a situation where they were plodding through dialogue that was poorly written or poorly conceived just because it was conceived by George Lucas. It wasn't that they were plodding through dialogue that didn't have a place to go. This was about making sure that we made some connections along the way for these characters.
That was one of the strongest moments of the movie.
And we get enough glimpse to say, okay, these people not only care about each other enough to fight alongside each other, but they also care enough about each other to say, no, wait a minute, how long have we been together and you never thought to tell me about this? It's kind of like, for me at least, it felt like the first time that I was talking to my wife and she said, oh yeah, no, this is how we do the dishes. You've never done the dishes this way. How long have we been married that you didn't, those kinds of things that we discover along the way about real people and real situations. I loved it. I got a kick out of it. It was a fun moment. And it was illustrative of the way that they were taking time to make those connections. Yes, I wish they'd have made them a movie previous, but I'm not going to hold it against them because they didn't. I am going to say nicely done.
All right, so let's talk about some specifics then. All right, we've talked about the movie as a whole, and Todd, you're segueing nicely into talking about specific scenes and whatnot. Let's get into a few things. Carrie Fisher, rest her soul. She is nevertheless used in this movie.
Yes.
Though she is gone. How did we feel like this was handled? How did it go? What did it seem seamless to you? Did it seem like they probably should have let her go in the Last Jedi, or what is it called?
When she got blown out into the atmosphere?
Yeah.
To the non-atmosphere?
Or whatever. Yeah. It's
Carrie Fisher?
Yeah. Carrie Fisher. How do we feel?
Carrie Russell.
Did I say Carrie Russell? No, you heard Carrie Russell.
I heard Carrie Russell.
Yeah, no, Carrie Fisher. How do we feel about
Carrie
Fisher's appearance in this movie?
I felt like they handled it really well. The one needle scratch for me was actually the flashback with her and Luke doing the training, and I felt like the CGI for young Leia was terrible compared to how good young Luke looked in that moment.
Yeah, but even young Luke looked way too young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
they
did.
both looked weird.
It was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But I felt like they handled that storyline really well. It was interesting to me because I think I read it in our Reddit thread where somebody was complaining about throwing Lando in there just out of the blue, and all of a sudden he was very important. But I feel like they put Lando in there to play the part that Leia would have played or should have played.
Yeah.
Especially with
pulling the galaxy together to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go find someone, and we have this random conversation with this ex-stormtrooper at the end where, like, who are you? And I don't know. Well, let's go find out. Like, I feel like that's something that Leia would have done. So I really liked what they were doing there. I appreciated it. I wish that it had been Carrie Fisher, but since it couldn't be her, I thought that they used the footage that they had really well.
All right. Fair enough. Ken, did you want to get in on that one?
I loved the story, by the way, the flashback. I didn't care for the CGI.
Yes.
But the flashback itself showing that Leia actually took some Jedi training, at least enough to craft a lightsaber. I loved that. I thought
that she got to help Rey finish her training
Yeah.
and be a Jedi Master.
and which makes sense, by the way, when you see at the beginning of the movie. Why is Leia helping with her training? I guess because there's no one else, but she actually had some training. So you actually, it makes sense for the immediate story, but it makes sense for the overall story also that she would at least go so far as to craft a lightsaber, which was the biggest televised non-twist ever, that, you'll take both of these lightsabers conveniently to Icicle, and I don't care what the real name is because it's ridiculous, but so we'll call it planet Icicle.
It's called unobtainium.
Yeah. So you take both lightsabers to Icicle conveniently, and we'll just see what happens. Yeah, okay. We didn't know that was coming. I realize that sounds like a complaint, but it really wasn't. I like that Ben shows up on the planet.
Oh, that was a very satisfying moment.
Fantastic, yeah.
I do think the Rey and Ben thing is the most satisfying arc of the three movies.
Absolutely.
By far.
I
Yes.
hated that kiss so much.
Really?
Can I just tell you?
So did
I
my
did too.
11-year-old niece.
I booed at that moment. I know that that's what they had been working toward, but I still just always I personally had a brother-sister vibe from them. So when they kissed, I was just like, ugh.
You know what I would have
No.
loved? Just a hug.
Just a hug.
Just a hug
is it
would've been great.
because
If they had hugged and then he had like disappeared with the Force, that would have been a lot more impactful to
Yeah.
me
Megan,
than them kissing.
is
him
Adam Driver an attractive man to you?
No.
Would that be different if it was Henry
If it was
Cavill?
Poe Dameron,
I was
probably.
going to say.
If Henry Cavill had been making out with Rey, would you have been more okay with this?
No, I still got a brother-sister vibe.
From
The
Henry
whole
Cavill?
thing.
I don't even get a brother vibe from Henry Cavill. Wow.
This took a turn.
Yeah, it did. If it
Okay,
had been Tom Hiddleston, it might have been a different story, but anyway.
Ryan.
Really?
Missed opportunities and dropped storylines. Captain Phasma wasn't in this movie at all.
Which was smart.
Right. It might have been a bit too much if it was like the Emperor survived, she survived, Boba Fett survived, everybody survived. Great. It might have been a bit much. But everybody was really looking forward to Captain Phasma, and then she's gone, right? So I feel like it's maybe a missed opportunity for the story as a whole. The Knights of Ren.
Mm-hmm.
I felt extremely underwhelmed with what we got. It was such an exciting idea where you have a Darth Vader character in The Force Awakens in Kylo Stern.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Stern. And he's not just Darth Vader. He's kind of got this whole cult
He's
behind
got
him.
a posse.
Right, a posse, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
A crew.
I thought it was really cool. And then in this
crew.
one, they show up finally. Ooh, the Knights of Ren, and then nothing. They just kind of get carved through like wheat at the very end, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I felt very disappointed. How did you feel about it?
That is Did I expect anything different? No, because there's not enough runway to give the Knights of Ren a story in the line at this point. That was a missed opportunity from, again, that should have been a piece in the second story.
Agreed.
And going on forward
Agreed.
if you wanted to really explore that. And it could have been really cool, especially, and it could have had a very strong emotional impact.
And as long as we're talking about runways, like The Last Jedi, we kind of taxied out onto it. And we saw his training with Luke, and we're like, oh, getting ready to get into the Knights Room. Blah, never mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole of it, is that there just wasn't enough to tell that story. It could have been really good. It could have been impactful, emotionally impactful to have Kylo Ren have to turn on these men too. If you gave them some sort of personality, names, anything other than Knights of Ren, or just simply names for the characters, make him have to order them around a little bit, do something. He turns,
this is Sawyer Wren, this is Bob Wren, this is
this is Stimpy Wren.
Yeah, exactly. Give him at least names. I mean,
yeah. So that's the thing, is that is a missed opportunity. I would applaud more the wisdom in not trying to explore it with Phasma, and this, not trying to do too much with it when you already had so much to do.
Yeah.
Because there are very few plot lines or very few sub portions of this movie that I feel could have been replaced by that storyline.
How would you have felt if, Harry Potter style, they had come out and said, you know what, we just have too much story left to tell, 2 movies. The other one will come out next year.
As a Star Wars fan, I would have been excited and probably been like, okay, it breaks the format, the trilogy format.
Right.
I think we would have been, and here's the thing, I don't know if that's a win for the Disney Corporation to do it that way, because
of what we talked about earlier, like the box office numbers.
Like you said, that trend does exist. Like, I'm not saying that trend doesn't exist. The impact of that trend is more my argument there. And so the idea that if they split it into 2, and then this one comes out, and you have just as many people who are upset about it as Last Jedi, or even split it half and half, and that diminishing return on this, it's really, I think it would be better just to tell it the best you can in this period, tighten it up a little bit, and do it that way rather than splitting it into 2. I think it would be ill-advised to do that, as much as I would have loved.
What if they had actually said, this is Star Wars Episode 8.2, and the next one will be Star Wars Episode 9?
Still 4 movies. I don't care what number you put on it. It's still 4 movies.
Yeah, you run into the same problem. We talk about, we talk about the Marvel franchise bringing in some measure of fatigue for all of the different characters, all of the different movies, all of the different exposure that we were looking at, and we had a conversation about that a couple of times over the run of that particular phase of Phase 3. And I think
we had the conversation after I think Rogue One came out.
Yeah,
are we going to start seeing this?
And I think that the hardcore Star Wars fans are not necessarily going to say, oh yeah, I'm experiencing fatigue. They're going to eat up everything that we've got. We're seeing with the Mandalorian that there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of watching, there's a lot of viewership going on with the Mandalorian. So clearly for fans it wouldn't have been a problem, but for the investment for the investment house for Disney, I think you're right, Ryan. It's not a win for the studio to have stretched it out, even if it would have made more sense for the fans and for the story.
It does make me curious, though, with the idea of filling in these gaps with the Knights of Ren and some of these other things that we've talked about, what the novelization is for the, because for, I'm actually not sure if they have them for these, for.
Yeah, they do.
This okay.
I think The Force Awakens
kind
is
of
on the
curious
shelf behind you.
now, maybe to read that one and see if it fills in some of those gaps, because I've noticed that in some of the other novels, and yeah, it's kind of weird to read a novel that's based on a movie, so it has all of that stuff in it.
Yeah,
but then I don't know. It does help to flesh out those characters for me sometimes.
The brilliance that Lucasfilm had in the before they sold to Disney was allowing the expanded universe, because it let all kinds of side stories and other questions be answered. And George Lucas was very careful to make sure that he did not allow authors to go off and try and answer stories or answer questions without him saying, yes, that fits the model of the universe that I was building. And it was, for those of us that invested in that, it was lots and lots and lots of fun.
When Disney bought Star Wars, and then they jettisoned the expanded universe. We all kind of, we voiced our annoyance. This is my youth that they're taking away, and making not canon and all that. That's fine. So we have our personal complaints about that. But now, do you all agree with me that was a strategically stupid decision in retrospect?
Oh, yeah. Well, especially since I feel like at this point, they're stealing storylines from the novelizations and throwing them in.
Which I absolutely detest. I think it is artistic theft. It is the rape of the Star Wars expanded universe. I hate what they're doing with that sort of thing.
I wouldn't necessarily call it theft or rape, but it is laziness. I mean, it's creatively, it's all their content.
Is it if the creators are the ones who have voiced to bring them back?
Yeah, I think it's still lazy. I mean,
Timothy Zahn bringing Thrawn back into the Star Wars universe. He's the one who controls that character. He brings him back in.
So
Is
you're
that
saying-
laziness on his part?
So you're saying Disney's saying Timothy Zahn, bring us some Thrawn storylines, that sort of thing, or Disney's saying we're just gonna Timothy Zahn come do what you've already done for us.
I'm not sure how that goes down, but I know Timothy Zahn is the one. It's part of the reason we haven't seen Amara Jade or anything like that as well, is he won't allow that to go forward.
See, if they come and say we want to use these characters that were epic and that people liked and craft new storylines around them, that's fine. But if they want to come and say these 3 books were great, this Thrawn character's awesome, let's just take those and adapt them.
Well,
That's laziness.
yeah. I haven't seen a direct translation like that yet. I can't think of one where it's straight. We're going to pull
How
from
about
the legends.
Kashyyyk?
What about Kashyyyk?
So you have things like I'm playing through what's it called, Jedi Fallen Order,
Yeah.
and they go to Kashyyyk,
Mm-hmm.
and that is an expanded universe.
No, it's not. It's in prequels.
Is that right?
Yep.
Kashyyyk
Oh,
was
that's right, they
actually
do go to
introduced
Kashyyyk.
in the Christmas special.
That's
which
true. That's what
I
I'm
think we
thinking.
can all agree should definitely be canon.
He does.
Well-
Yoda goes to Kashyyyk.
Let's
Yoda
be
goes to
fair.
Kashyyyk.
That's right.
Since we're
Okay.
getting
Well,
close to Life Day, and I'm getting ready to sing my Life Day songs, I'm just telling you.
How sexy is it going to be, Todd? Be honest.
It's going to be way more sexy than you think because we've upgraded the software in those mind devices that Chewbacca's father was wearing. We're going to have some fun with that, let me tell you.
Honestly, I still am on board with, even though as much as I liked The Force Awakens, a lot of it was just lazy rehashing. It just was.
Well, okay. Well,
But I
now
liked the story. But anyway, you asked for an example, and that was my example. But I don't know that it's pervasive, but it happens.
That's the thing is I understand that complaint or the idea of it being lazy or feeling that it's not fair to do that. They haven't done that. It's more of a mentality that I think we've gotten into of, oh, this is so close to this, or they've clearly just done this, because there are aspects of of the original Thrawn trilogy storyline that I'm like, they've kind of taken some of this and put it in other pieces here. I can see that. I actually think that whether you like it or not, it was one of the smartest things they did to give themselves a clean slate. Jettison isn't the right word.
That is exactly the right word.
It is not the right word because it's a recategorization. It is shifting it because they literally labeled them legends. And if you go and you read what their breakdown on it, legends are stories that cannot be verified as true in the universe. That's how they say it.
Star Wars Apocrypha.
It can be true or it cannot be true. That's kind of the way it's just a legend story, which allows them the opportunity to go in and say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and put more validity in this character or in this story. And if they don't do that, if they actually jettison and say none of this is canon and it can never be used, none of this in here, you've cut off an arm, a very useful arm here.
And what I'm saying is that it's a mistake to take that away from fans because you want to reach new audiences, sure, but you have to maintain your hardcore fan base. And they've systematically cut that fan base off from the series. I count myself as one of these people where one of the things, like you said, Todd, one of the things I loved about Star Wars growing up and into my adulthood was the expanded universe. Mm-hmm. And so they cut that off and they say, never mind, this is no longer a thing. And then they start in with Force Awakens, and I was like, okay, all right. So yeah, it's a little derivative. It's very derivative, but that's fine. It's a good jumping off point. And then as they go through the movies, the following movies, they ruin Han Solo and they ruin Luke Skywalker, and they systematically alienate people like me throughout this whole process. And that's why we're seeing these diminishing box office numbers. And that's why we're seeing and forget the numbers, just think anecdotally. When we went to The Force Awakens, when we went to The Last Jedi, there was a bit of a decline in the crowds that were there, the costumes that we saw. I think I saw 2 people in costume for this one, where there were crowds and crowds of people in costume for the first one, for The Force Awakens. And so just the fan excitement is gone. It's just not there. Nobody's cheering in the theaters anymore, except for at the credits when it's over.
I'm not sure that that's necessarily accurate about this franchise in specifics, because I've been seeing that in some of the franchises in general. I saw that in the DC, in the way that the DC movies played out. The first time that they brought out the new Superman flick, we had lots of people that were showing up. There were a lot of T-shirts, a lot of fan memorabilia. We had some people showing up. dressed in costume. And then as that franchise moved on, we saw less and less of that. The same thing has been true with Avengers. Yeah, we all went and saw Endgame, but I went and saw Endgame once. No, I take it back. I saw Endgame twice, but I did not see Endgame twice because I wanted to see Endgame twice. I saw Endgame twice because I saw it once alone and once with my children because I thought that they needed to see it as well. I think part of what we're seeing with the diminishing of some of the fan investment that way is that there are enough other locations, enough other opportunities for fan expression that did not exist prior to the development of the modern piece that we're watching in the last 10 to 12 years for the way that we have advanced ticket sales. I think is one of the biggest things that kills
no more midnight
the
showings.
enthusiasm.
Yeah,
you don't
I
have
was gonna say.
seating.
You're not waiting in line with some guy that you realized you would never have talked to before, but now you understand you have a deep, deep, deep connection, partly because you share an enthusiasm for the subject matter and because you waited in line for 12 hours playing video games on battery-powered machines because you were not going to miss the opportunity to be one of the first people in line. That level of hysteria we have killed. And the movie and maybe
And that's
it's not
true of all of the franchises.
and maybe
Yep,
it's
I
not
think
the
you're right.
studios
Yeah.
that have done that. Maybe it's the fans that have done that to themselves because we're demanding it to be easier and to lock in my tickets early.
Well, a lot of it is it is kind of the atomization of the culture, and like you say, things are available everywhere. Streaming now has kind of killed the movie experience in a lot of ways, but also
yeah.
there's the security aspect of it. Right after the Dark Knight
Yeah,
shooting in Colorado,
that's true.
That literally that was the event that killed the midnight release. Right, no more of these. And then assigned seating was another thing. All these theaters have assigned seating now, and so you don't have to wait in line ever.
And dressing
for
up in
anything.
costume,
Online
is
ticket
somewhat-
sales.
Yeah,
I will say though that I was with my group of friends that I saw Star Wars with when the tickets came available. I guess they showed on Monday Night Football a preview, and then the tickets became available, and we all got an alert on our phone saying, "Oh, tickets are available." And I was with a group of people that were immediately like, "Oh my gosh, we have to get our tickets!" And they were like freaking out, trying to figure out when we were going to go see it and which.
Yeah.
And we're sold out already on this ticket, so we need to go. And so we were definitely very excited to see it, but it wasn't like it came to the day. And my one friend was saying, "Well, do I dress up like Princess Leia because it's the last movie she'll be in, and I kind of want to honor her, but also, it's just."
Yeah, and I am probably being a little bit too harsh on Disney. I shouldn't say Disney did this, Disney did that. It's Kathleen Kennedy. She's the worst, and she is going to be promoted so hard out of this franchise. They can't fire her, but she's going to be promoted into oblivion.
In true
They're going to
military
give her.
fashion.
They're going to give her some sort of like new franchise. It's just she did such a great job. We're going to give her this other thing to build out, and we'll never hear from her again. It's her fault, but it's. I guess my point, or my original point, was I'm probably putting too much weight behind that, and I think a lot of it has to do with these other external factors that have killed the idea of fandom to begin with.
You know what though? Sorry,
Go ahead, Ken.
As somebody who lived through the midnight release and the standing in line and fighting for seats, and now gets to live through this, I'm okay with. Can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm okay with letting the past die.
Killing it
if you must.
I understand
yes.
that. I understand that. And going back to the idea of the expanded universe, the choice of when I saw what Disney had chose to do by releasing Rebels. Do you remember the enthusiasm that we felt when we saw Rebels the first time?
Yeah, for like 6 episodes.
And I've gone back and I've watched all of them, and I've enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching now thanks to Disney's streaming service, I've been watching The Mandalorian. I love what Jon Favreau is doing with the franchise, with that part of the franchise. And what I think we're seeing is a recreation of a different expanded universe under different direction and different leadership. And while I may not necessarily agree with everything that Kathleen Kennedy is choosing to do with the franchise, in fact, I'm quite disappointed with some of them. I'm thrilled with what Jon Favreau is doing with it, and I'm thrilled with the fact that Disney is looking for ways to flesh out other pieces differently than they were done first, to reinvigorate a franchise and make it appealing to a new group a new group of people. And that's something that we talked about once before too, that Star Wars, it's like my kids think that Jar Jar Binks was one of the greatest characters that was ever around. And I looked at them and I said, this is the stupidest character that we've ever seen in the franchise. They love Jar Jar. I think we're going to see the same kinds of reactions from fans who come into this franchise at a newer point. They're gonna see these things and say, "Wow, these were really cool things," but we're looking at it from a lens that says, "Yeah, but it was nothing like what it was when it first came out."
My 18-year-old boy still says that the original, the prequel trilogy is the best, but he's 18, so he doesn't know.
You're terrible at raising children.
I tried.
That was his childhood.
Okay, you can only teach them so well.
Let me ask you. How excited would we all be? And very seriously, how excited would we be if The Mandalorian was the first in several series like it, where we had kind of new characters? He's familiar in that he wears Mandalorian armor, so we kind of get visually what it's about, but it's a new character. And then they marvel it out. They do several of those, several series or movies with characters like that, and then eventually, they start meeting up. Oh, this is exciting. If they just marvel it out, that would be so much more exciting than the death by beheading of the Skywalker franchise.
They have literally brought Kevin Feige over to talk about this.
Like, exactly.
It's literally what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So I hope you're excited, because that's what's coming, folks.
I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
I'm interested.
And in fact, one of the things that, although I want to get back to some complaints, some nits that we want to pick on the storyline, but I think one of the things that I'm hopeful is that Disney will take a couple of different directions. One of them to flesh out what we've currently got and build some things around the Skywalker line, the Skywalker story, and do some side stuff. I think we're hearing some things about the Obi-Wan Kenobi new movie that's supposed to be coming out, and some different pieces that are built around there. The Mandalorian has been very successful so far, so hopefully we get more on that. But I think that Disney is positioning or could position itself to do some really interesting things with the Old Republic, with some of the ideas and the storylines that could be there. If we have effectively killed the Sith in this iteration,
oh man, that makes me want to get back to this movie.
which is something that I want to talk about, that as far as a plot line. If we have effectively done that, let's then go back and talk about what the Sith used to be. We've got enough other material that Disney owns, that they have not killed, that they have not eliminated, that we've got lots of places to go where we can go backwards and be able to flesh out. We can do lots more with lots of the Jedi Knight stories. We can do lots more with the stories of the building of an empire and the building of a republic, and we can put it into a framework that is familiar but absolutely new for Disney to be able to do whatever they want. And I'd love to see some of that. I'm hopeful that that's going to happen.
I think you could see that. I will also say that someone pointed this out to me. It did not register with me at the time, but they kind of set up potential 2 spinoffs in the movie, which I'm not sure how I would feel if they followed them. They have the Poe Dameron, Carrie Russell storyline.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Do that, and then there's the Lando and the former Stormtrooper. Hey, let's go find out. Like, it could be their Black Panther of the Star Wars universe.
I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. He is too old. It won't happen.
I would see it set up that he would start it, bring a crew in, and be the overseer, the Zordon, if you will, of the Power Rangers series.
That way he just has to lie down the entire
Basically.
thing. Yeah.
Like, do that, get it going, and get that storyline followed, because that's another storyline that was introduced at the beginning of this new trilogy that never really got a whole lot of answers to it.
Yeah.
The First Order steals kids to make stormtroopers. Yep. Okay, that's an interesting plot line. We don't have time to follow it in the Skywalker saga.
Nope.
But we could here, following her, this new person's history.
How long would you like to see, Ryan, between now and the next Star Wars movie? Because right now there's nothing slated for release. How long do you think it would take? And I mean this like as a fan, as like a strategic thinker. How long do you expect or want it to wait?
Probably the earliest I would dare say bring something back to the large screen would be 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that
I would say
minimum.
it's at least 2022.
5. I would say, like, if you want to really cash in, make it 5.
I don't think. I think 5 is too long.
Not if they're still doing things in the background. If they've still got things like The Mandalorian that kind of keep the Star Wars name going, but it's been out of the theaters, they haven't had anything feature length for a while.
Well, they've got,
and then they announce that, like, so kind of build up that goodwill again, and that's going to take time. 3 years, like I said, minimum. I could see it happening in 3 years, but maybe 5.
I think if you could execute 3 or 4 series, honestly, something as simple as the promotion out of Kathleen Kennedy would buy goodwill back for a lot of people who don't like it. Like, there's things you could do to speed that timeline up.
Yeah, Kevin Feige coming in for Star Wars already has me more excited for the future than it does for the past or the present.
Amen.
So,
seeing Jon Favreau's name on The Mandalorian, I went, oh.
John Favreau,
I'm okay.
Dave Filoni, Kevin Feige.
Yes.
Those are,
yes.
I'm sure Deborah Chow as the director who's running the Kenobi series, like, seeing those names and seeing what they've done, like that is our new hope, if you will. Yes.
And Ryan will see himself out.
Yep.
All right. Maybe we should, in the last 15 minutes or so, actually get back to the movie. Because I think...
we've beaten the Star Wars fandom universe apart.
I don't think we have. There's a ton to talk about, but that's not exactly what we're here to talk about. I think we could do several episodes on the Star Wars franchise as a whole. Obviously we have a lot to say, but let's get back to the movie itself. I want to get back to the Sith, Todd. This is one of those things where, like I said, after that first time when I came out and I said it didn't age well over the next 48 hours, part of it was things like this, where what are the Sith? Are the Sith a race? Apparently there's a language called Sith. Now, but the idea of the Sith, from my understanding, for 7 films, 8 films, was that it was kind of a religious order similar to the Jedi, where they had this whole system set up, the Master and the Apprentice, and they could come from anywhere, and they're just Force users who chose a different path, et cetera, and these are the Sith. And now suddenly there are a bunch of, like, faceless, cloaked audience members waiting for Rey, and and they're all whispering in Sith.
Yeah.
What are the Sith? What is this?
That's one of those things where, and again, I as I looked at that, I said to myself, oh, okay, well, since I've played these video games and I've read these books, I understand what's going on with this. And I recognize that for everybody else, they gave just enough to say the Sith are a mysterious group that have been able to do these unnatural things, including power over death. So that's why we have so many Sith in this place. But are they all there? Are these representations? I mean, I saw it and I said to myself, oh, these could easily be representations of Sith ghosts that had, again.
The Force goes for the dark side.
Because I know.
Oh, man. Is that what it is? Are you staking a flag in that?
That was my supposition.
I am.
Dark side Force ghosts.
It could.
Hard pass.
It's literally something that I just thought of right now, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna die on that hill, but I could see that.
I immediately, that was where I went.
Really?
Is that was what we were seeing, and that when Rey sees them, because remember when she walks in, they aren't there, and then all of a sudden she sees them, and it's when the Emperor is talking. That piece of it is and this was you remember I said that I had some plotline pieces that I was concerned about. This is actually 2 of them. One of them is there was not a lot of explanation for the rest of the film going community to have bought into what was going on with the Sith. Again, because I knew and because I'd done enough, spent enough time in the world of Star Wars, I felt more comfortable with it. So I didn't want to go, what the heck? But I did have one in that moment that I said, what the heck? And that was, I want to know how the Emperor survived.
Oh, gosh.
Because I'm looking at that situation and I'm saying, okay, was it the Crimson Guard that were able to intercept him, close to death, and they were able to resuscitate him? I mean, we see a lot of medical instrumentation behind him, and he's obviously not moving on his own. And, that piece of the storyline and why it took so long for him to bring all of this out and how he's been pulling the strings at the end. I really wanted a James Bond villain kind of a moment where he said, this is what happened. I was on the verge of death, but my Crimson Commandos found me. I wanted something.
A little exposition.
I wanted that at the end.
And I wonder if
dead.
What's that?
He is dead.
Was it zombie Palpatine?
All right, no, he's not dead. He's clearly alive.
Well, and that's the
I
thing.
have died. Literally the line he said, I have died.
Well, that's about like somebody saying that after they fake their own death or something. It's
but that's the thing.
It's the only reason I was okay with them bringing Palpatine back was the fact that I'm like, oh, zombie Palpatine. I can get behind this.
So what I didn't know, and what
how does that work?
What I'm still wondering is, did he investiture? Did he invest his essence into something that was one of the artifacts in the Death Star before he was fully over? See, that's the piece of this that I would like to have known, because I recognize that one of the things that they'd built up in the history of the Sith is that they had the ability to put their consciousness into artifacts that could then be pulled up, and those consciousness remnants could take over. And I would like to have seen that. I would like to have known more about how that ran. As it was, everybody just ran with it. And I was like, all right, well, if they're going to run with it, I'll run with it too. Thanks. But that was one that I would really like to have seen.
Couple other Palpatine things I want to throw out there. You guys remember the conversation that he has with Anakin in Episode 3? And he says, it was rumored that he even had the power to create life. Yeah. Right? Or however he says it. And in that one, the implication is interesting in that it's like, is Anakin the spawn of Palpatine? Did he create Anakin and place her in Shmi Skywalker?
I thought that was pretty much...
You're right. Right. Okay. So, but then this movie kind of throws that into doubt. First of all, let me go back to that.
This is my first... Okay,
let me go back to that, because if Anakin is in fact the progeny of Palpatine, then Rey is a descendant of Palpatine as well. Ben is a descendant of Palpatine.
Yeah.
And so in a weird way, they're like
brother and sister,
weirdo cousins, sisters things. Anyway,
I saw someone point this out before. There's a lot of people who are writing a single panel in a comic as the proof of what you're talking about there, and it's not what that comic book talks about.
Well, no, but this can't be the thing anymore, because now we have the power to create life, and he says, "I made Snoke," and then there's a freaking jar of Snokes in the background.
Cloning.
Literally, he's making Snokes. That's what they figured out. So Anakin's still a mystery.
Making Snokes.
Anakin's still a mystery. Now we're just making Snokes in the basement.
How is that a definitive answer to the other?
I'm just saying they put it right there on the screen.
They put
that's the best piece of information that we have as to what he was talking about in Episode 3.
I looked at that. Admittedly, that was one of those moments I'm like, so that's how they were trying to explain, like how they're going to explain Snoke. I don't know if Palpatine was the original intent or not, or if Snoke was supposed to be trying to gather the might of all the Sith and everything here. And it's like, you killed off our guy to do that. Now we have to figure out a way to do it. Okay, cloning, thank heavens, it's our time travel of the Star Wars universe. Cloning here, but the long and short of that Anakin thing is Palpatine manipulated the midichlorians to help.
Did he?
That's
Or did he make a jar of Snokes?
No, he. Okay.
I'm just saying I didn't care for the jar of Snokes. That's all I'm saying here.
That's fine. I'm just saying, for those of you out there who are sitting there going, well, wait, what about it? He is not the direct descendant of Palpatine. He manipulated midichlorians. It is not a genetic connection to. He did not sperm up.
Is that
you're saying that there's not an immaculate conception for Anakin Skywalker?
You're saying there is an immaculate conception for Anakin Skywalker.
Oh my goodness!
Well,
I think that needs to be a new Reddit flare.
Sperm up.
Sperm up.
You just immaculately conceived a brand new phrase for the podcast. Now, when we need a new euphemism for Ken because he can't talk about sex, then we can just say, they spermed up.
They spermed up on that one.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention, because the moment he told Rey, "You are my granddaughter," or whatever he said.
Yeah, what is he, Russian?
I don't know. But my point is the moment he says that, I thought, wait, who did Palpatine nail? I want to know. That's one of those questions.
You don't think Palpatine had a friggin' harem?
I'm sure he did. I just want to know who. Was it a senator? Was it some, random
Jar Jar.
doxy? Was it,
It was one of the ET aliens.
Yeah, was it? I mean,
There you
I
go.
don't know.
There you go.
His children were human people.
did he dig on the Malastarians with 3 eyes? I mean, I want to know.
Yeah, boy, that's okay. Other things, other plot points. Let's get off of Palpatine before he sperms us all up. All right.
That's a mess. I don't want to clean up.
I was a little bit confused. I was glad that they did not kill off Chewbacca. I really liked the treatment.
Nope.
For I liked Chewbacca. I really thought that his response to Leia's death was very impactful and powerful. I thought it was awesome.
That was good.
I didn't mind that they didn't kill off Chewbacca. Like, I didn't mind the way that they went about not killing Chewbacca, but I was kind of annoyed that everybody found out so quickly, oh, he's not dead, let's go rescue him. Like, that just really undercuts the impactfulness of that potential loss. Like, that could have been a really cool thing near towards the end where they're like, oh my gosh, you're still alive. That could have been another thing to bring them all together.
Yeah.
Instead, they were like, oh, let's do another rescue mission on another Death Star. Okay, let's do that. Which, again, was really fun.
Kind of goes back to our thing about it could have been several movies. This one,
right?
There was enough story here.
But they did a similar thing with C-3PO where they wiped his memory. But oh wait, no, that's okay because R2D2.
Because we'll plug him into R2D2.
The only thing about it, like, I just wish they would have cut the scene where the First Order reveals that he's alive, because when Rey finds out that he's alive, it's a really great moment.
Right, I agree.
Just go straight to that.
Absolutely.
Don't show us that he's alive. Let us see through her eyes that that's the case.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
I was grateful that he was not dead. I think that he was. I would rather he be the character that moves forward as a potential still connection to this world than R2D2 and C-3PO.
I do think that they were lacking in a real emotional gut punch in this movie. The only main character that we had that died was Leia, and everybody knew that was coming. And because they didn't have all of the necessary footage, it wasn't handled as artfully as it could have or should have been, had she been around to film the movie. And so that didn't land as an emotional impact moment. Chewbacca, like Rey accidentally killing Chewbacca would have been bonkers awesome as a way to drive her character. Now, is that a third movie moment? Arguable, right? But I kind of wish that he had died. I was blown away. I was like, you saw the 2 transports, and so I was like, did they really just, did they? And then, like you said, 5 minutes later, no, they didn't. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it would have been great. I thought it would have been a really good send-off for Chewbacca. A good way to use him to really mess her up.
It could have been a really good arc. I don't know if it's the best arc.
I don't know I don't know if they had time, and looking at it from a movie that they are building around. Let's be fair. These movies are built around, to a certain extent, children. These are not adult movies. These are not.
Says the guy whose age starts with a 5.
Yeah, well, that's true, and I've never really grown up. So thank you very much. Call me Peter Pan, if you will. But really, these movies are more child directed. They are not necessarily designed to be real high drama for going after
Sure.
all
I
of the
get
things
what you're saying.
that grown-ups would be concerned about. And so for children, that moment is big and bad enough, and the impact is big and bad enough for children that you go back and you look at all of the Super Friends, you look at all of the cartoons that do that, you look at all of the serials, movie and television serials that have done those kinds of things. They often have a moment like that, a cliffhanger, but then they resolve it very quickly and let you know, oh no, this is actually going to be okay. It's just, how does it all work out? And so I didn't have that kind of reaction that you had to it. I thought, oh, okay, well, but I get it. They're gonna. and they set themselves up. One of the big plot points that I struggled with was the 18 hours. Why did it have to be 18 hours? Why did all of this have to take place in less than 24 hours?
And that just it was an unnecessary clock. They never referenced it throughout the rest of the movie.
It.
Yeah, it's like these ships are going to be ready to go in 18 hours. We got to get there and destroy them.
Got it.
And then they really kind of lollygag through the rest of the movie, which I'm fine with if they hadn't set up the timer. But then they never talk about it anymore, and clearly more than 18 hours have gone by.
There was only one other place where they talked about it, and when they did, they referenced the fact that they don't have time. They have to take action right now. And we look at those kinds of things, and again, if 18 hours is the critical time frame, I'm watching all of these Star Destroyers come out of the ice around Exegil, and I'm saying to myself, how are all these? How is it 18 hours? They're all going to wait until like 15 seconds before they have to deploy, and that's when they're going to go. That was another plot piece for me that I kind of went.
There's just so much stuff in this movie that they didn't have the time to explain, and therefore I think were very weak plot points, like the Star Destroyers. Wait, where did these all come from? How did they get people to man them? Where did this technology come from? How has it been sitting under the surface on Hexagon forever?
In many ways, it feels much like
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal. Okay.
In many ways, it feels
Icicle.
very
Just
much
icicle.
like the same question that my parents asked me when they said, "So they shoot a torpedo down one little hole and it kills the whole thing. What's up with that?" We get that answer in Rogue One.
No. We get that answer in A New Hope. At least we get, even if it's stupid, it might be stupid. That's fine, but we at least get the animation, and they're like, it's going to go down the thing. It goes to the middle, and then it explodes.
Causes a chain reaction, and there you go.
We get this piece that somebody says. So nobody ever thought about that would be a problem. Well, yeah, they kind of did. We get the same kind of deal. They've got to have something that is impressive enough that it has to take care of this. This is how we're going to do it. And so they create it. It's not a MacGuffin, but it's certainly an
unimpactful plot point.
It's the big red button is what it is that they had to have.
All right, we better start wrapping up. Megan, what do you want to say?
Oh, I wanted to ask people's opinions on the they're not horses. The horse-ish characters that they like ride across
horses in costume.
The outside of the
I did think it was
ship,
really
like,
cool to go on the outside of a Star Destroyer
That
and
was
do a
neat.
landing there. I thought that was pretty
That was
fun.
pretty neat.
All right.
Oh, but about the horses specifically?
No, I just one of the guys I was with was just like, oh my gosh, I saw that in the preview, and just a little part of me died because I'm like, why are there horses in Star Wars? They couldn't just get a little bit closer.
Why
to
not?
the
I
to
was
the
fine
port.
with it.
Why couldn't there
no
be?
problem with
Why
it.
couldn't there be horses?
That's fine. They were beardy horses. They were Star Wars horses. I guess they were more like Lord of the Rings horses.
They were Star Warses.
Star Warses.
Star Wars
Nice.
horses.
Ryan, you have things to say? You pulled that mic over like you meant business.
Not on that. No.
Oh, okay. All right, all right.
Ken really hit it on there. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
With
a lot of
that
things in
does
this, why
bring
not?
up the character of I don't know her name because she doesn't matter. But that's a problem.
Of nameless
in my
ex
mind.
stormtroopers. Yeah.
The other ex-stormtrooper. I am not the first person in the world to bring something like this up or to care, but in this one, it kind of made me care. Let's talk race in Star Wars. And the shaft that what's-her-name got from The Last Jedi? Rose?
Rose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I wasn't a fan of her character's arc in The Last Jedi, so fine. But she's a character who has been introduced and that we're supposed to care about and that Finn is starting a relationship with. And then she just gets shafted in this movie. Oh, they told me I have to stay behind to study Star Destroyer plans. Oh, okay, see ya. And that's it. And then it's like everybody's getting paired off, right? So you've got Poe and what's her name? Sleazy?
Carrie Russell.
Zori.
Sleazy.
I don't know what her name is. You got Poe and her kind of paired off, and then Rey and Ben are pairing off, and then oh shoot, we need somebody for Finn. Well, nobody liked Rose. We're not going to write her in because, like you said, Ryan, or somebody said it was written by Reddit, right? Well, we can't have Rose in there because everybody hated Rose. Oh, I know. We'll give him a black ex-stormtrooper because he's allowed to love her. I thought that he had such great chemistry with Rey in the first one that I was excited for. I was kind of, what do the young people say?
Know what
we're shipping them from the first movie.
Yeah,
I was really excited about them, but then like they can't end up together. And I don't know that it's a whole racist thing, but it kind of felt weird that we're going to introduce this black character that he can have a relationship with, and I don't know, it felt weird to me. I didn't like it, and it something was off. Okay. Go ahead, Megan. No, save me from this hole I've dug myself into.
Save you from this hole. First of all, I think that Oscar Isaac has chemistry with absolutely everyone, and I shipped him with pretty much every character he talked to in the movie at some point.
He and Chewie are going to have a great time.
Yeah. Chewie's 250 years old. He knows things. I don't know why I said that.
He cheats.
But I thought it was kind of obnoxious that they kept setting up Finn wanting to tell Rey something. I need to tell you something. What did you need to tell me? What were you going to tell her?
Stupid.
And then they never actually said it. And I guess all of us could come up with our own thoughts of what we think that is.
Is that on the cutting room floor?
I don't know.
What do you think? Because that was a horrendously unfulfilled moment.
Yes.
Ryan, what do you think?
I'll say yeah, probably.
It was
Everybody's pulling mics away.
It was one of the reasons why the Ben Rey kiss bugged me so much, because I was like, I feel like you're setting it up that Finn and Rey are going to end up at the end, which, by the way, I was glad that she didn't end up with anybody at the end. I felt like the point of the movie didn't need to be Rey gets a boyfriend. I just lost my train of thought again. Ryan, what were you going to say?
I'll put $10 on the table right now that the thing he was going to tell her is that he has discovered that he is force sensitive and needs help. That's my $10 right there.
There's your headcanon.
I'd buy that.
That's good headcanon.
I'd buy that.
That's what there's a number of times when he, in this movie, even in previous movies, he references the Force a lot as his motivating factor. Finn's purpose in this series is to be the introductory point for other characters into the Resistance. He's the first one brought in by connecting with Poe, and then Rey and he connect, and then that brings her into the Resistance. And then he becomes a leader in the Resistance as he and Poe kind of become co-generals at different times. Like that's his purpose. I watched the whole time, and it's 100 for me. It was 100% a giant red herring that he wants. J.J. Abrams wanted everyone to think that he was going to say, "I love you, Rey," because it was that obvious. And there are a lot of times that it was that obvious, and he went with it anyway.
Yeah, I was like, as though Abrams doesn't go with the obvious thing. Yeah,
but
this is no Rian Johnson we're talking about here.
That is where I put that. That is my headcanon.
That's good headcanon
on that. And honestly, I have to say, I spent a lot of thought as I have dreaded doing this episode.
You are welcome.
So Craig and I went and saw this together, and there were a few times sitting in the theater that Craig would have an audible or physical response to something. And I wouldn't say the exact opposite, but I would have a different response. And instead of being like, what's wrong with you, or anything like that, I thought, what is it about my headspace, his headspace, whatever, what is it that has me enjoying this moment, but him not? And the one that comes to mind right now for me is
the lightsaber.
No.
Oh, dang. Okay.
No, is the fleet of the universe showing up.
Oh, dear God.
And the First Order turns and says, it's not an army, it's just people.
It's not their navy, it's just people.
And I thought that is a beautiful sentiment. I love that people coming together can achieve this, whatever. I loved that sentiment over. And I watched Craig sitting in his chair turn over, smack his forehead, and audibly sigh at this moment. I'm like, what is your headspace that this bothers you? Not saying that like it's right to feel one way or the other about it, but what is it that makes you that made that moment a groan where I felt that's a great moment?
For me, I felt like what I was watching was Star Wars was a Star Wars homage to what happened at Dunkirk when they said, we need everybody. We need everybody right now to help us in any way that you possibly can. And that's what allowed, I mean, it's a pivotal moment for the history of the people of Britain. And so I saw that and I thought, when I was watching that, I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes total sense to me that they would have spread out that news, and that's where it would have come from.
Well, and they built it up a lot. The plot point itself is not all that interesting. It's pretty well telegraphed, everything from The Last Jedi on.
Yeah.
Like, nobody showed up. They say it like 4 times. Yeah, but nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. Yeah, well, everyone's going to show up at the end. We know. It's fine.
There's
Move on.
more of us.
There's more of us.
There's more of us.
Yes. It was more. It's more along the idea of, like, for me, I've been watching these and kind of thinking about myself and the idea of headcanon, and a lot of these things that come up, there's a moment where you kind of look at it and you decide, I'm going to fill that in with my own headcanon.
Yes.
Versus that took me out of the story. And that's not really a bad or good thing, but that's the only reason I can look at someone watching the exact same moment here and go, like, I filled in headcanon here. This is a very emotional moment for me. I'm watching the reshooting of the Kylo Ren Han Solo sequence. His redemption moment, everything there, just absolutely a wreck inside. Just is beautiful. And just wondering, like, what am I feeling in? What am I doing? What is it about me that's letting me connect with this that other people may not be?
Yeah.
Like, that's so, like, that moment, that groan of it's people. What's the connection there for you? Like, that did that?
Look, we're an hour and 10 minutes into this. I am not going to give a full accounting of my mindset in that moment because we would need another episode. But first of all, just plain and simple, aesthetically cheesy, just too cheesy. And so it was, and especially even as written and as delivered, it was, but there are more of us. Who's he talking to? Or what does he say? What's the line? There are more of us though, kid, whatever.
Yeah, Lando.
And then he says it twice. There are more of us. And it was just, that repetition was super cheesy. And then the sentiment behind it, and then the fact that it was completely nonsensical. How did you get all these people? Where did they all come from? What was the message that was given? Why? How is it that they wouldn't rise up before, but now that there's a rumor that maybe there's possibly this guy that you heard of a long time ago that you never heard anything about because you lived on an outer rim world and nobody gives a crap about you and you never heard of the Emperor and all that. This is what rallies everybody together. I'm going to need some more for this to make sense, right? And then, and like I said, I can't get all into this, but I'm getting really, really sick and tired of the people banded together. It's this kind of sacralization of the people.
I wonder if you'd feel the same if you'd seen this as a 10-year-old.
I don't know, but I'm not seeing it as a 10-year-old.
Well, and I kind of wonder if they fill in those gaps in the novelizations. So maybe we need to read that and then get back together and talk about it.
I'm talking about the movie.
It's in the crawl. Like, for me, legitimately, this is the headcanon, the headspace here that I'm in. It says, okay, it's in the crawl. He's been broadcasting to the entire universe, threatening revenge. Everyone is afraid. It's in the crawl right there. Okay, so everybody's on edge here. And then we watch the Falcon go off one direction and the fleet go off the other way.
And
so
the
we're like,
Falcon
okay, we know
says,
he's coming back in a minute with everybody else.
On dawn of the 5th day, at sunrise, look to the east.
It's a cheesy Gandalf moment. But
you bought it, and you didn't.
I did not.
For me, because that's the thing. It's the idea of the dots that I am taking that I'm trying to connect because I'm anxiously trying to make this work.
Exactly, totally. And I think that's a real thing, and I'm not going to try to explain it away or whatever. We all have our preferences and our preferred aesthetics. And for me, I have emotionally checked out of the present tense of Star Wars. It will always be one of my absolute favorite franchises, my favorite things from my childhood and whatnot, but I have emotionally checked out, and so I'm not willing to go the mental distance that you are to make things work. Whereas if it's Gandalf coming over the ridge and it's, the sun shining down and the score swells and all this stuff and it's super cheesy and I'm going to get tears in my eyes. I'm like, this is awesome. And Ryan is going to be over there going, it's fine. Whatever. I don't care. It's just a difference in personality and that's got to carry us a long way in these kinds of discussions.
Ryan, to validate you, I totally cried at that moment. I heard Lando's voice and started crying, and then I saw Dennis Lawson, and then I lost it.
I did too. When Wedge showed up,
You cried at Wedge? I thought it was fun, but you cried?
I gasped.
Really?
I went, oh. I was happy.
All right.
I will say, like, just you can use this as my final thought because we're wrapping up here, whatever here. As a whole, like I said, I feel the movie it is rushed. There's a lot of things there, but there are so many. I thought it interesting that you said that there were no emotional gut punches because that was the exact opposite experience for me.
Really?
There were so many moments in this show where I was emotionally invested in what was happening there, and I thought they were beautiful moments. Ben's redemption, Ben's sacrifice at the end as not an atonement for everything he's done, but it's the one thing he can do right now to try and set things right, to give Rey what she needs.
Yes.
To do that. Moments like that.
What does she need?
To be able to continue on.
Oh, to be alive.
To be... So that
to be not dead.
Yes.
Okay.
The Force, the Jedi Order, not the Jedi Order, but the Jedi as she is, that her understanding of the Force. Which, by the way, beautiful saber color choice. Thank you. It was well fitting for her.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yes.
But her ability to continue that on, as we have destroyed a portion of probably the strongest portion of Dark Force users out there. Like, this is a chance for that the Force can still be out there. And still be taught if needed.
All right.
But yeah, that was the thing. Like, for me, there was just so many moments that were an emotional payoff, and then really nice. That is one of the reasons why, for me, this will be in this last trilogy. This will be the Return of the Jedi for me, not just in placement, but it's the one that I enjoy watching Return of the Jedi the most. Even though Empire Strikes Back is categorically a better movie overall, writing and everything there. I enjoy watching Return of the Jedi more when the choir starts singing as Luke battles his father, battles Darth Vader at the end. Like, it's super emotional. For me, I will probably watch Rise of Skywalker more than any of the other two. Like that, because of the emotional connection that was there for me.
Ken, final thoughts?
I loved, there were very many things I enjoyed about the movie. Little nitpicky type things that I loved about the movie. Like her yellow saber, like the fact that she made it out of her staff. I think that's great. The fact that we saw Han one last time, even as a memory, that was the point where I actually gave a real big smile and was like, this pays off for me, that sort of thing. I will never, ever in a million years ever get over the criminal misuse of Captain Phasma in this trilogy. I will never get over it. She was supposed to be the coolest, baddest ass character, this generation's Boba Fett. There was so much that they could have done with her chasing Finn and then finding these other rogue stormtroopers. That was unforgivable that they just let that go by the wayside.
Megan, final thoughts?
I loved it. I'm excited to see it again. I will definitely be purchasing this one. I think I'm with Ryan, where it's probably the one that I will rewatch the most. For me, it just, watching it, it felt like one of the original trilogy movies, just kind of, I don't know, with the chemistry between the characters and the way the action sequences were played out and the music and everything. I really loved it.
Todd?
Very much for me, this was a pleasant conclusion. And perhaps for me, the biggest payoff, and super cheesy, absolutely designed to elicit the response that I heartily gave it and jumped right in with both feet, was at the end of the film, as Rey is at the Skywalker moisture farm, and she is watching the suns rise, where Luke Skywalker had been watching the suns set. The same music cues were used, and I cried.
Of course you
Loved
cried.
it.
Todd, you would cry. You would cry at your doctor's office. I mean, depending on the exam.
I have cried at a doctor's office. I've cried at lots of places, but that one, it was designed to elicit that emotional response, and I gave it.
Ryan, you look like you have another final thought.
I'm trying not to be an ass. It's the Lars homestead, not the Skywalker homestead.
Oh, jeez.
Granted.
I'm just curious, if she found any chunks of Owen or Baru hanging around or something like.
Just like on the ceiling.
I think that gal was the caretaker, and she cleaned all of that stuff up.
I love the little callback to The Force Awakens when she slides down the hill on the piece of metal.
Yeah, yeah.
I was kind of afraid that like the woman showed up, and I was like, if that's Shmi Skywalker and she somehow didn't die, I'm gonna be so. So I was very glad.
That was not Shmi.
So let me take everything I've already said and just say, yes, I stand behind all of it. But I want to call back to what I said at the very beginning, which is that all of this stuff, I stewed on it for 48 hours, and I got more and more upset with all of what I saw as kind of cheesiness or plot holes or bad motivations or unmet expectations or whatever it was, and just not care for this. And then I went and saw it again, and for the most part, that stuff kind of just melted away into the background or went away entirely as I was watching the movie, and I had a good time with it.
Good.
And I did enjoy it the second time. I can tell you that I have tried multiple times to watch The Last Jedi for a second time. I can't do it. It's too bad. I can't watch it. This one does not fall into that category. If we're talking about this trilogy as a whole, then I think history will look the most kindly upon The Force Awakens, but even that will not age well over the decades. But this one, and this one, people will say like, well, they did the best they could after The Last Jedi, blew the trilogy to pieces. So he did the best he could. I think he did a great job with what he had. A lot of choices I probably would have asked him to make differently, but that's fine. Oh well, I had a good time, and I am happy to let the Skywalker saga, set into the binary, distance. I'm good with it being done. And if Star Wars is going to continue, please, no more Skywalker stuff ever. So,
amen.
Yep.
All right. So, gosh, Ryan, are you okay? You feeling all right after this episode?
I might need to go check. I might have a blood vessel burst in my left eye right now. But
all right, let's call it there. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you enjoy what we do, go to patreon.com/legendarium to support the show. We've had several new patrons recently. Thank you so much, all of you. I don't have your names here in front of me, or I would call you out. That's maybe a tradition I should institute, but thank you for those of us who do that. Go to thelegendarium.reddit.com to join the conversation, and you can check out our Discord link there at Reddit as well. So you can pop over there and do some live discussions there. And I think that's it. So one of these days, we'll finally publish our final Hobbit episode, and we'll figure out where we're all going in 2020. But thanks for listening to this one, everybody. See you next time.
May the Force be with you.
Okay, so now that we're done, does anyone have like, we did final thoughts? Like, did we skip over anything that somebody's like, I can't believe we didn't talk about this.
I wonder, this is something that I've been thinking about in regards to the movie numbers. I recognize that box office numbers calculated on a weekend, and it's the first weekend box office receipts that kind of herald whether or not a movie is going to be declared successful or not. But I wonder if the fact that it was coming out the weekend prior to Christmas, because I have lots of people that have been telling me I've got the whole week off, so I'm planning on seeing it as part of my Christmas celebrations. And so I wonder if that isn't something that impacted their first.
I bet they get a nice spike on Christmas Day.
Yeah. We talked, well, of course, yeah, Christmas Day is a big movie day, but we talked before we started the microphones about the unmet expectations for tonight, Sunday night, where the projections for tonight were estimated. Well, they were brought down by $15 million. So they projected X, and then they looked at the performance over Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then they said, "Oh, okay, well, Sunday maybe it'll do 15 million less than we thought on that day." And what that tells you is that word of mouth is not going well for this movie. And that doesn't bode well for this idea of, well, they'll just make it all up in Christmas week.
I don't know.
If word of mouth was great, people would be like, oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, gosh, yeah, I can't believe I haven't seen it yet. I'll get out there. Where I suspect that for a lot of people, they're going to be hearing like, yeah, it was okay. I mean, catch it when it comes out on streaming. You'll be fine.
You know what we didn't talk about? Now that I'm thinking about it, I wish we had General Hux. The how he quickly comes as the spy, and just as quickly he is gone because he gets shot through the gut. And I thought, I
It's
loved,
as much as his character deserved.
Well, I loved seeing him as a subservient character, just somebody
He was a terrible character through the first two movies.
He was.
He didn't deserve, as a character, he didn't deserve any more treatment. They just had him in there because he was in the first two movies, and I think it was the right choice to just blow him away.
Yes, and I think if that had happened in the second movie, I would have enjoyed it more. I think
maybe
There's no motivation in the second to do it.
this is the spot he should be in, after his great downfall in the first movie. He should be in a spot like this where he's subservient and he's petty and he's bitter, and his only motivation is to see this other guy lose,
Right. Well, he kind of does that. I mean, you get to the end of Last Jedi and he's standing there and Kylo Ren's unconscious and he goes to pull out his gun to shoot him. I think he has that thing. But I think that's one of those things that if Rian Johnson doesn't make those choices in Last Jedi, what does Hux look like in the third? Making him a spy, that's not an option if he's still a thing like it's...
Did you want to talk about the boardroom scene?
Oh, can we talk about the boardroom scene for a minute?
You had
Who was I talking to about
It was
that?
Craig.
It must have been you.
Yeah,
It was Craig.
So the boardroom scene is maybe the best piece of juxtaposition between the original series and this, where the boardroom scene in A New Hope, the reason that it works is that it feels like a boardroom. You have a bunch of bureaucrats sitting around talking about things. The lighting is fluorescent and flat. Everybody is bored. Except for one guy who's kind of passionate. Nobody really cares to be there. They're all a bunch of bureaucrats.
They're
and you've got Darth
drones.
Vader, and you've got Darth Vader doing his Darth Vader thing, and I find your lack of faith disturbing. And he chokes out the one guy for a second, and that's like the only moment of kind of intensity in the scene. And even that is toned down when you compare it to the boardroom scene in this, where everything is very dramatically lit. And everybody is extremely heated. And then when Kylo Ren loses his shit, Darth Vader style, it's not a force choke. It's a throw him up on the ceiling, crush him. And, we don't see the aftermath, but we can assume that his juices slowly leaked onto the table below and scared everybody around the table. You know what I mean? He squeezed him until the juices flowed.
He spermed up.
I remember him being thrown up and then...
No, but then they cut the scene. I'm just saying, like, it's very violent, it's very dramatic, it's very passionate. Everything in the scene is cranked up to 11. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I had an issue with in this movie in particular, when we're talking about all three, this one in particular suffered from pretty bad pacing. And the thing about it that I realized later, especially after the second viewing, is that everything is cranked up to 11 all the time. Yeah. Every scene is cranked up to 11 and we get no break. There's no emotional break in there. And so there's time in that original trilogy to breathe with the characters and with the settings and whatnot. And I think the boardroom scene is a great example of that. And in this one, we just don't have any of that. We have little snippets of moments like you were talking about, Todd, with the quips about, you were a scavenger, we could do this all night. We get little moments of that, but even that is in the middle of this incredibly dramatic thing tense. Where they're trying to evade the patrols and all
very
that.
Very tense.
Anyway, and so I kind of came out of this one just exhausted instead of energized. Maybe partly because of that. Yeah. Ryan is so done with this.